This is the 14-inch Lenovo Ideapad 520S, a sleek, mid-range Windows laptop that aims to satisfy a very large demographic. Whilst not the cheapest laptop around, in some of its various configurations, it still has features that can satisfy more demanding users. So let's get straight into it and take a closer look at the 14-inch Lenovo Ideapad 520S. Starting with the exterior. As a brand, Lenovo's build and design of their laptops is something of a mixed bag. Some of their laptops, such as their gaming Y series, whilst aesthetically really good, their build quality is generally not great. Their higher-end Yoga laptops are usually relatively well built, but my experience with Lenovo's build and design philosophy is one of form following function. And this somewhat holds true with the 520S. First of all, the 520S is an aluminium unibody build. The monitor housing and the palm rest assembly are really well built, full aluminium unibody in a sort of space grey colour, or as Lenovo calls it, mineral grey. Very little flex, which is quite impressive, but the base of the laptop is a fairly sturdy plastic cover. The 520S also has these polished edges to give it more of a premium look and feel. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of this kind of design element on any device, but it is good to see a bit more attention to detail. So the 520S does have quite an impressive build, but the quality of the design does feel very utilitarian. On the dimension side of things, the Ideapad 520S is 32.7cm across, 23.7cm deep, and 1.93cm thick, and coming in at around 1.7 kilograms. These are respectable dimensions and weight figures for a notebook of this size and class, but at the same time nothing spectacular. Part of the small footprint is down to the very narrow bezels on the 520S's display, which measure in at just 7mm. It's a very good balance between screen size and portability. 13-inch laptops never really feel big enough for longer periods of productivity, and 15-inch laptops start becoming unwieldy. So, looking at the physical features, we of course have the 14-inch Full HD IPS display, here in an anti-glare finish, on top of which we have a 720p camera, microphones either side. Moving our way down, we have the keyboard in the signature Lenovo key shapes. Not a fan of the grey keys, personally I'll prefer plain white or black keys. In front of the keyboard we have a generously sized trackpad and the Fingerprint Reader to the right. On the left side, going from back to front, the power, HDMI, a USB 3.0 port, USB-C port, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. On the right, we have a Kensington lock, a USB 2.0 port, an SD card reader, and a Lenovo Restore button. And finally, on the bottom, we have 3 rubber feet, grills for the fans, and speaker grills on either side for the Harman speakers with Dolby Audio. More about them later. Now, moving on to the internals. Before we even begin, there are a ridiculous number of configurations of the 520S, with different CPU choices, GPU, and storage configurations. The availability of these configurations also vary by market. On the unit we got from Lenovo, we have a 7th generation dual-core Intel Core i7-7500U. Lenovo also offer Core i3 and i5 configurations. On our unit, performance was snappy in most cases. Browsing the web, productivity, streaming videos, the 520S in this configuration was completely smooth. But when you have lots going on, dozens of tabs open, downloading games, a video streaming in the foreground, the 520S, even with the i7, did experience some stuttering once in a while. This takes us quite neatly onto RAM. As far as I can tell, the 520S is only available with 8GB of DDR4, running at a quite impressive 2133 MHz. This is probably what caused the slowdown I experienced when doing quite a lot of multitasking. Whilst having so many programs running and so many tabs open is rare, everyone will do something similar at some point. Therefore, having a 16GB RAM option would have been welcome for the 520S, but this just isn't the case. The 520S also comes with the option to add a discrete graphics card, the NVIDIA 940MX. Our review unit doesn't, and it comes with the Intel HD 620 integrated graphics. Graphical performance on the integrated graphics is possible and will satisfy the needs of most users. For slightly more intensive usage, simple games like Minecraft ran very comfortably with a moderate render distance and full graphics quality. More demanding titles like Battlefield 4 will run at around 20 FPS or less, even at the lowest graphical settings, making it very unpleasant. I was going to do a demo of Battlefield 1, needless to say it wasn't necessary. When I ran Battlefield 1, even on the lowest graphical settings on the 520S, the Intel HD 620 barely pushed out 7 FPS, but again, for integrated graphics that is to be expected. The addition of the NVIDIA 940MX will improve general graphical performance somewhat. For more demanding tasks like Photoshop and light video editing, the 940MX will improve performance noticeably. For light gaming, Minecraft will run even smoother at higher render distances. Moderately demanding titles like Battlefield 4 will run significantly better and should even achieve 30 or so FPS on medium graphical settings. Just about playable, but still not pleasant. Newer titles like Battlefield 1 whilst improved, should just be able to push around 15 to 20 FPS at the lowest graphical settings, still unplayable. If you plan on using this laptop for anything other than just simply browsing the web, some basic productivity on Word and PowerPoint, and the occasional bit of Minecraft, I would definitely recommend, if possible, getting the NVIDIA GeForce 940MX GPU option. So any sort of graphical work, either professionally or for university, like Photoshop or anything graphically related that is moderately demanding, definitely consider the discrete GPU option. Doing so could save a lot of time and frustration. So in general, performance on the i7 unit we tested is okay. For most light and moderate users, the performance of the 520S provides should satisfy most of your needs and provide a couple of years of future-proofing. The performance of the 520S does lend itself quite well to the needs of most university students, as long as graphical design and performance-intensive tasks aren't a part of your course. For more demanding and professional users, I would recommend a look elsewhere, especially laptops with quad-core CPUs, and/or having the option of more than 8GB of RAM. The 520S, even at the top-end configurations, isn't a high-performance laptop. Being limited to a dual-core processor and 8GB of RAM does not lend the 520S to great performance under more demanding usage conditions. Performance isn't one of the 520S's redeeming features. In fact, most competing 14-inch laptops in the £500–800 price bracket have around the same specs as the 520S. Whether performance is important to you or not, it may be worth looking at 13 and 15-inch laptops as well, as they have a lot more variety when it comes to performance. Storage-wise, the 520S is only available in two storage configurations, 128 and 256GB. These are PCIe SSD drives, and they run seriously quickly. Startup is basically instant, and the speedy drive does make general usage quite snappy, although larger drive options would have been appreciated. With regards to fan noise, during normal use the fans do run, and you will hear it. It isn't very loud, but if you don't have something playing in the background, you will notice it. But again, this is to be expected from a laptop from this class and size. Moving on to the display. As mentioned before, we have a 14-inch IPS LED display running at a resolution of 1920 by 1080. It's an okay display, not very bright, but should work fine under most lighting conditions. However, you will start to struggle to see things comfortably in strong sunlight. Colour accuracy is not great. Whites have a slightly yellow hue, but being an IPS display, the viewing angles are quite good. Being a Full HD display, you can't expect too much, but the pixel density is high enough to give the average user a comfortable viewing experience. The thin bezels definitely do add to viewing content on the display, with less distraction, but also looks very nice and clean. In general, this is an alright display, along the lines of what one would expect from a laptop with this price bracket and class. For the general user, this is a very pleasant display to use, but for those coming from either a more colour accurate 2K or 4K displays, or those who need more colour accuracy for their use, this display just doesn't cut it. Now the speakers. The 520S has the aforementioned stereo Harman speakers with Dolby Audio. The sound quality of the speakers on the 520S is quite impressive. Good treble, great clarity, and definitely has a lot of body and depth to it. The speakers don't seem to like bass very much, and whenever bassy music is played, there is a slight distortion towards the lower frequencies than actual bass. But despite this, the speakers on the 520S are quite impressive, and certainly do sell the 520S as a media consumption laptop. Not extraordinary, but definitely commendable. Looking at the keyboard and trackpad. The keyboard is a typical Lenovo keyboard with a signature key shape. I found this keyboard to be really nice to type on. It has a good amount of key travel and a nice responsive tactile feedback. I would have liked the key travel to be a tiny bit shorter, but overall it is a pleasant and efficient typing experience. I would have no problem writing a great deal off of this keyboard. Like I said before, I would have preferred if the keys were white with a grey typeface or black with a white typeface, but this is just my opinion. The backlighting on this keyboard has two brightness settings, and it does a good job of illuminating the keys in the dark, just the right brightness and a really even backlight coverage. Personally, the keyboard is one of the highlights of this laptop for me. The trackpad is quite generous and has a very nice texture to it. 95% of the time, it is very comfortable and effortless to use. But like my previous experiences with Lenovo trackpads, because I prefer to use the physical click feature rather than tap, Lenovo's trackpads, and Asus's to some extent, tend to jump occasionally. Multi-touch gestures are recognised most of the time, and quite accurately too. The actual click is slightly on the firm side for my preference, but for most people coming from other Windows laptops, they will be quite used to it. The Fingerprint Reader to the right of the trackpad is a really neat feature that many Lenovo laptops have had for a very long time. This Fingerprint Reader works a treat, and unlocks the laptop through Windows Hello. Very accurate, very fast, nothing to complain about here. Finally, looking at battery life. battery life on the 520S is a mixed bag. I found that doing just passive activities like streaming 1080p YouTube videos on a medium brightness, the 520S lasted around 9 hours, which is respectable. However, when you start doing more active things like browsing the web, working on PowerPoint, Word, the battery life started to suffer at around 3 to 6 hours depending on how much multitasking you were doing. So battery life isn't amazing, but if you manage it well, the 520S can just about get you through a working day, but I would still bring the charger just in case. So who is it for? If you're a student or someone who's looking for a general purpose laptop, for browsing the web, some productivity or media consumption, watching YouTube, streaming Netflix, etc., this can be a great laptop for you. The 14-inch display with the thin bezels gives the 520S a smaller footprint as well as a more accommodating and comfortable display size. It's relatively light as well and easy to carry around with you. With the PCIe drives, this laptop should be snappy and provide a really good user experience for light to moderate use. The battery life is good enough that if you manage it properly, it should just about last a full day. Good typing experience, and let's not forget the pretty good speakers. The 520S is definitely not for demanding or heavy users. Graphic design, video editing, heavy multitasking. The hardware just isn't designed for that kind of use. If you want something for high performance, look at the likes of the Razer Blade 14 or other laptops around the realms of £1,000 or over. If you are the most basic computer user who will only browse simple web pages, check emails, write a document every now and then, this will probably not represent great value for money. Look along the lines of £200 to £400 like the HP Stream 14 and the like. This is essentially a basic, everyday laptop with an improved experience through the addition of more high-end bits and bobs. And that is what you're paying that little bit extra for. There are also plenty of competing products from HP, Asus, Samsung, and plenty of other PC makers out there. But the 520S is a pretty good pick, but ultimately down to personal preference. Thanks for watching our review of the 14-inch Lenovo Ideapad 520S. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more of the latest tech. Feel free to leave a comment, tell us what you think about the 520S.